Hey everyone, and welcome to today's deep dive. We're going to be exploring two topics that are, let's be honest, a little heavy:
Yeah.
coping with loss and managing stress.
Big ones.
We've got two fascinating presentations to dig into.
We do.
One focused on grief and the other on stress.
And while those might seem like,
Yeah,
difficult topics to kind of wrap our heads around,
for sure.
understanding them can really make a huge difference in navigating those inevitable, challenging moments we all face.
Exactly. It's about arming ourselves with knowledge and
Yes,
practical techniques, right?
absolutely. Think of it like building a toolkit for resilience.
I like that.
By the end of this deep dive,
Okay.
you'll have a better grasp of the grieving process and some solid stress-busting techniques to put into practice.
Love that. A toolkit for resilience.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's jump right into the first presentation on grief and loss.
Okay.
It starts by stating the obvious.
Okay.
Grief is a natural response to loss, but it also makes it clear that there's no one right way to experience it.
That's such a crucial point because
Yeah.
we often put pressure on ourselves or feel pressure from others to, to grieve in a certain way.
Right.
And this presentation reminds us that everyone's journey is unique.
So true.
Mm.
Now, the presentation dives into the work of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross,
Yes.
the psychiatrist who introduced the famous 5 stages of grief:
Yes.
denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance.
Right.
I'm sure many of you are familiar with them.
Familiar with those words.
Right.
Absolutely. And her book on death and dying was groundbreaking,
Yeah.
but
It's important to remember
hugely important.
that those stages aren't a rigid roadmap.
Not at all.
You might not experience all of them,
Right.
or they might show up in a different order.
A completely different order.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's more like a framework
Yeah,
for understanding the emotional landscape of grief, right?
exactly. Some people might sail through certain stages
Right.
while getting completely stuck in others.
Yeah.
It's highly, highly personal.
The presentation gave the example of denial being a powerful coping mechanism
Yes.
in those initial moments after a loss.
Right.
It's like your brain needs a buffer
Totally.
to process such a huge event.
It's a way of protecting ourselves from being completely overwhelmed by that initial shock.
Then there's the anger and bargaining stage,
Right.
which the presentation said often stem from a feeling of wanting to change what happened,
Yeah.
to go back in time.
Yeah.
All those what ifs and if onlys
Absolutely.
whirling around.
And that anger can manifest in so many ways,
Yeah.
directed at ourselves, at others, even at the situation itself.
Definitely. And following that, we have depression,
Yeah.
often characterized by,
Yeah.
deep sadness and a sense of isolation.
It's important to allow ourselves to feel those feelings, even though they're incredibly painful. It's a natural part of the grieving process.
So we're not trying to bypass or suppress those feelings of sadness,
No.
but rather acknowledge and process them.
Exactly. It's about acknowledging the weight of the loss.
Mm-hmm.
And as we move through that,
Yeah.
we can start to find our way towards acceptance,
Right.
which isn't necessarily about feeling happy,
Right.
but rather reaching a place of peace and learning to live in a new reality without the person or thing we've lost.
Acceptance. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
It's about finding a way to integrate the loss into our lives and move forward.
Exactly. And the presentation emphasizes the importance of closure in this process,
Okay.
although it acknowledges that closure can mean different things to different people.
So it's not necessarily about
Yeah.
tying everything up with a neat bow,
Right.
but more about finding a sense of peace and resolution.
Right. It's about acknowledging the loss, letting go of any lingering resentment or guilt, and feeling ready to embrace the future.
Which brings us to the practical strategies for navigating grief.
Okay.
The presentation highlights the importance of acknowledging all your feelings,
Yes.
both the good and the bad.
And that really resonated with me because so often we try to suppress those negative emotions like
Yeah.
anger or sadness.
Right.
But the presentation suggests that allowing ourselves to feel those emotions fully is actually an essential part of healing.
So it's not about wallowing in sadness,
No, not at all.
but about giving ourselves permission to feel the full range of emotions that come with grief.
Exactly. And then finding healthy ways to express those emotions.
The presentation mentions talking to loved ones, journaling, or even expressing yourself creatively
Yeah.
through art, music, or writing.
It's like finding a language for your grief,
Yeah.
whatever form that takes.
And of course, taking care of yourself physically becomes even more crucial during times of grief.
Absolutely. Grief can be incredibly draining, both emotionally and physically.
Yeah, makes sense.
The presentation stresses the importance of nourishing your body with healthy foods, getting enough sleep,
Hmm.
and even engaging in gentle exercise.
Yeah.
It's like giving yourself the strength to weather the storm.
Building that solid foundation to support yourself.
Exactly. And let's not forget the power of social support.
Yeah.
Leaning on friends, family, support groups, even seeking professional help from a therapist.
Right.
These can be invaluable resources during a time of loss.
It's a reminder that we don't have to go through grief alone.
We don't have to.
There are people who care and want to help.
Absolutely.
The presentation also mentions online resources and finding solace in spiritual practices, whatever those might look like for you.
Yeah, whatever feels right for you. It's about creating a support system that feels right for you, whatever that may be.
Now, shifting gears a bit,
Okay.
let's move on to the second presentation on stress.
Oh, okay.
This one starts by defining stress as a natural response to challenging situations, something that impacts us both physically and mentally.
It's not all in our heads as we often think.
Right.
Stress triggers real, measurable changes in our bodies.
Right, and the presentation breaks down the different components of stress.
Okay.
First, we have stressors,
Right.
those external events or situations that trigger a stress response.
Think deadlines, relationship issues, financial worries,
Mm-hmm.
work pressure,
Yeah.
anything that just disrupts our sense of equilibrium.
It's like those external triggers that set off our internal alarm system.
Exactly. Then we have the stress response itself,
Okay.
which is the body's internal reaction to those stressors.
So what's actually happening in our bodies when we experience stress?
It's a fascinating cascade of physiological changes.
Okay.
Our bodies release hormones like adrenaline and cortisol,
Okay.
which prepare us to deal with a perceived threat.
This is where the fight or flight response comes in, right?
Exactly. It's that primal automatic reaction that kicks in when we encounter danger,
Right.
real or perceived.
Right.
Heart racing, palms sweating, muscles tensing. Our bodies are preparing to either fight off the threat or run for the hills.
Yeah, it's like our internal alarm system going off, putting us on high alert.
Exactly.
So this fight or flight response,
Yeah.
helpful in a true emergency,
Yes.
but maybe not so much when it's triggered by that looming work deadline.
Precisely. And that's where we get into the territory of chronic stress.
Right, because most of us aren't facing down saber-toothed tigers on a daily basis.
Right. Thank
Our
you.
stressors tend to be more persistent,
They do.
like work deadlines, relationship issues,
Right.
financial concerns,
Yeah.
those things that just keep on giving.
Exactly. And when we're constantly exposed to these stressors, it's like that fight or flight response gets stuck in the on position.
Right?
Our bodies are in this perpetual state of high alert, even when there's no immediate danger.
So chronic stress is like having that alarm bell constantly going off in your head, even when there's no fire.
A very fitting analogy. And as you can imagine,
Yeah.
this takes a toll on us, both physically and mentally.
The presentation talked about acute stress versus chronic stress.
Right.
Can you explain the difference?
Absolutely. Acute stress is that sudden, intense, but short-term stress we feel when we encounter a challenge or threat.
Oak?
Think of
Yeah.
almost getting into a car accident,
Right.
that jolt to your system.
Right.
That's acute stress.
Right.
It's that fight or flight response in action.
Okay, so acute stress is like a sudden burst of energy.
Right.
While chronic stress is more like a slow burn that wears you down over time.
A perfect way to put it.
Yeah.
And the presentation emphasizes that it's the chronic stress,
Yeah.
that constant state of high alert
Right.
that poses the real health risks.
What are some of the ways chronic stress manifests?
Sure.
I imagine it can look different for everyone.
Absolutely, but some common signs include, difficulty concentrating, irritability,
Mm-hmm.
changes in appetite, muscle tension,
Okay.
headaches, feeling overwhelmed, even a sense of helplessness.
It's like stress can seep into every aspect of our lives,
Totally.
affecting both our minds and our bodies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the good news is
Right.
the presentation doesn't just leave us hanging with all this talk of stress.
Yeah.
It dives into a whole range of effective stress management techniques.
Okay, let's hear it.
And this is where things get really interesting.
Okay. So what are some of these stress-busting tools we can add to our resilience toolkits?
Well, they start with the basics. deep breathing exercises.
Okay.
It might sound simple,
Yeah.
almost too simple,
Sure.
but consciously slowing down and deepening our breath can have a profound effect on calming our nervous system.
It's like hitting the pause button on our stress response.
Exactly. Another powerful technique is mindfulness meditation.
Okay.
And before you tune out thinking this is just a trendy buzzword,
Mm-hmm.
hear me out.
Okay.
Mindfulness meditation is about paying attention to the present moment, noticing our thoughts, feelings, and bodily sensations without judgment.
So instead of getting swept away by our thoughts,
Yeah.
we learn to observe them with a sense of curiosity and acceptance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And studies have shown that practicing mindfulness can reduce stress and anxiety, improve focus,
Mm-hmm.
and enhance our emotional regulation.
Wow.
It's like training our minds to become more aware and less reactive.
I'm already feeling calmer just thinking about it.
I know, right?
And of course, we can't forget about the benefits of regular exercise.
As they say, exercise is medicine.
Right.
And it's a powerful antidote to stress.
Yeah.
When we exercise, our bodies release endorphins, those feel-good chemicals
Yes.
that elevate our mood and reduce feelings of tension.
Right.
Plus, it can help regulate sleep, which often goes haywire when we're stressed.
So it's a win-win-win.
It is.
Improved mood, reduced tension, better sleep.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't want that? The presentation also mentions a technique called progressive muscle relaxation,
Yes.
or PMR. I've heard of it, but never actually tried it.
It's a great technique.
Okay.
PMR involves systematically tensing and then releasing different muscle groups in your body.
Okay.
And it's amazing how much tension we hold in our bodies without even realizing it.
Yeah.
This technique helps us become aware of that tension and consciously release it.
And you can do it anywhere,
You
right?
can.
Sitting at your desk, lying in bed, basically a portable stress buster.
Exactly.
Like it.
And in addition to these, specific techniques,
Yeah.
the presentation really stresses the importance of cultivating an overall healthy lifestyle.
So it's not just about quick fixes,
Right.
but about making sustainable changes that support our well-being in the long run.
Exactly.
What are some examples of these healthy habits?
Well, it starts with the basics. Getting enough sleep, fueling our bodies with nutritious foods, and prioritizing those activities that bring us joy and relaxation.
It's about creating those daily rituals that nourish our minds and bodies. And what about managing our time effectively?
Yes.
That always seems to be a big one,
Huge.
especially in today's fast-paced world.
Absolutely. Learning to prioritize tasks, set realistic goals,
Yeah.
and delegate when possible can significantly reduce our stress levels.
It's about taking control of our time
Yes.
rather than feeling like we're always racing against the clock.
Being proactive rather than reactive.
Yeah.
Building that inner resilience so we can better handle whatever life throws our way.
Exactly. And one final point that I found particularly insightful
Okay.
is that both grief and stress,
Yeah.
while often perceived as purely negative experiences,
Right.
can actually offer opportunities for growth.
Really? That's an interesting perspective.
Yeah. How so?
Well, think about it. When we experience a significant loss or face a major challenge, it forces us to confront difficult emotions, reevaluate our priorities, and adapt to a new reality.
Yeah,
And while this process can be incredibly painful,
for sure.
it can also lead to profound personal growth.
It's like we're being refined in the fire,
Yes.
emerging stronger and more resilient.
Exactly. So while we often view grief and stress as things to avoid at all costs,
Right.
it's important to remember that they can also serve as catalysts for growth and transformation.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
From the stages of grief to the science of stress to a whole toolkit of coping strategies.
We really have.
But let's bring it back to you, our listener.
Okay.
Why does all of this matter? Why should you care about grief and stress?
That's the key question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in the theory,
Right.
but the real value is in how this information applies to your life,
Right.
to your experiences.
And one of the things that really struck me
Yeah.
was the emphasis on how both grief and stress, while difficult,
Yeah.
can actually be opportunities for growth.
It's counterintuitive, isn't it?
It is.
We naturally want to avoid pain and discomfort.
Right.
But what if these experiences, as challenging as they are, can actually make us stronger and more resilient?
The grief presentation talked about how Acknowledging and expressing your feelings,
Yeah.
even the painful ones,
Yeah.
is a crucial part of healing.
Absolutely. And that's true for stress as well.
Right.
Bottling up your emotions doesn't make them disappear. It just creates more pressure.
It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater.
Exactly.
Eventually, it's going to pop back up,
It will.
often in ways we don't expect.
Exactly. And both presentations highlighted the importance of self-care. Whether you're grieving or stressed,
Right.
taking care of your physical health through things like exercise, sleep, nutrition,
Yeah.
can give you the energy and resilience to cope.
It's like putting on your own oxygen mask first before helping others.
Exactly.
You can't pour from an empty cup.
You can't.
And don't underestimate the power of connection.
So important.
Both presentations talked about how important it is to reach out for support,
It is.
whether it's from friends, family support groups, or a therapist. We're not meant to go through these things alone.
We're not.
Sometimes just having someone to listen without judgment can make a world of difference.
A world of difference. Absolutely, a world of difference. And, you know, that actually reminds me of a point I wanted to circle back to.
Okay.
It's about building those bridges of support and understanding.
Yeah.
Knowing that we're all in this together.
So to wrap things up,
Okay.
we've explored grief and stress,
I should pick ones.
two universal human experiences
Right.
that, while difficult, can offer profound opportunities for learning and growth.
You can.
We've talked about the importance of acknowledging our feelings, practicing self-care,
So important.
and seeking support from others.
All essential tools for that toolkit
Yes.
that we're building.
I like.
And perhaps most importantly,
Yeah.
we've touched on the idea of approaching these challenges with a sense of curiosity and even openness, recognizing that within them lies the potential for transformation and resilience.
What a powerful takeaway. Grief and stress, often seen as adversaries,
Right.
can actually become teachers,
Yes.
guiding us towards greater resilience and compassion.
Indeed. It's a reminder that even in the darkest of times,
Yeah.
there's potential for growth and transformation.
Well, that's a note of hope to end on.
It is. We hope this deep dive has given you not only a deeper understanding of grief and stress, but also a sense of empowerment to navigate these challenges with grace and resilience.
Remember, you're not alone in this journey.
You are not.
And by embracing these universal human experiences with curiosity and compassion,
Yes.
you can unlock valuable lessons and emerge stronger on the other side.
Stronger and wiser.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone. It really is remarkable, isn't it, when we think about it?
Yeah.
Almost everyone we meet
Yeah.
will experience significant grief and stress within their lifetime.
It's a shared human experience.
It is.
And I think that's what makes this conversation so important.
Absolutely. Because when we understand these experiences,
Yeah.
both in ourselves and in others,
Mm-hmm.
we cultivate greater compassion and empathy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It allows us to meet each other with more understanding and support,
Yeah.
especially during those inevitable tough times.
Right. And speaking of support,
Yeah.
that's something that came up repeatedly in both presentations.
Yeah.
The importance of reaching out, connecting, building those support networks.
It's such a powerful reminder that we don't have to navigate these challenges alone.
We don't.
Yeah.
There are people who care, who want to help, whether it's a trusted friend, a family member, a therapist, a support group.
Yeah.
Even online communities can offer a sense of connection and shared experience.
It's about building those bridges of support and understanding, knowing that we're all in this together.
We are.
Yeah.
And one final thought I'd like to leave you with is this.
Okay.
Imagine if we could shift our perspective from viewing grief and stress as purely negative experiences to seeing them as potential opportunities for growth and transformation.
That's a powerful reframe.
It is.
Yeah.
What if instead of fearing or resisting these challenges, we could approach them with a sense of curiosity, even openness,
Yeah.
recognizing that within them might lie valuable lessons and the potential for profound healing?
It's about reframing our relationship with these inevitable parts of the human experience.
Exactly, because it's often in those moments of deepest challenge that we discover our greatest strength and resilience.
Well said. And on that note of hope and possibility, we're going to wrap up this deep dive.
Okay.
We hope you found this exploration of grief and stress insightful and empowering.
Remember, you're not alone in this journey. And by embracing these universal human experiences with a bit more understanding,
Yes.
self-compassion, and a willingness to connect, you can navigate these challenges with greater grace and resilience and emerge even stronger on the other side.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.